Today is Mental Health Day, and I'm so glad that there's so much more attention being put on mental health than there has been in the past, because perhaps it's the most important subject of our time. Mental health, or as I prefer to call it, emotional health, is the subject of our time because without our happiness, without a life of meaning, then life becomes just drudgery or suffering, doesn't it? And the reason I like calling it emotional health rather than mental health is because I think there's still quite a big stigma on the term mental health. And emotional health is actually clearer anyway because it implies how are you feeling? How are you feeling balanced in this world? Are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling isolated? Are you angry? These are emotions. And our emotions are so important because they drive our decision-making process. Almost every major decision that you ever made, maybe all of them, have been driven by your emotions. Who to marry, or who to partner with, or who even to go out on a date with. These are not so much logical decisions as impulses and emotions that we feel about that person. Which apartment to rent or which home to buy, which bicycle to purchase, what color car you want if you buy a car, even our professions. If we have the luxury of being able to choose our profession, that is being driven by our emotions. And we all know that the way we behave towards someone who's sitting in front of us is largely driven by how we feel about the last person that we interacted with. So if you come off the street having just had a bad experience, maybe someone on the street was rude to you for no particular reason, it happens, doesn't it? And then you step into your apartment with your roommate or your partner, you will likely treat them differently than if that negative experience outside hadn't happened. So the way we interact in our relationships is partly driven or heavily impacted by our internal state, our grief, our anger, our loneliness, our fear, our anxiety. So our emotions affect our major decisions, our interactions with the people that we love or work with, yet we know very little about our emotions as a society, and we're given almost no direction or guidance when we're children. We basically just imitate our parents. We grow up in an environment and we imitate the way our parents respond to difficulties. And we either copy them or maybe we're so traumatized by the way they handle their emotions that we do the opposite. So for example, if you had a very overbearing parent, let's say a rageaholic parent who is also a bully, you have a chance of growing up to be a bully as well, or you could become the opposite, where you just learn to cover up and stay small to be safe from this bully, and you continue doing that your whole life. So some people assume almost the opposite personality of their parents, while the rest of us mimic our parents. So if there's a tragedy, for example, in the family, and your parents say, Opa just died, Grandpa just died, and they basically don't talk about it with you, and you don't see them cry, and they don't talk about it with each other. All you know is everybody's in this strange mood. The feeling of the house is different. And if I ask a question, I'm given just a very short answer. It's clear they don't want me to ask questions. That's what you learn to do. And as you age, you continue to do that without even being aware of it. People often ask me in my workshops, they say, I'm very interested in helping my children with their anxiety. What do you propose? And of course, the first thing that we all must consider is, well, how do you, the parent, handle your anxiety, because they're watching you. And they're going to basically do what you do, most likely. So if you're not handling your anxiety in any kind of healthy way, they're going to adopt your your behaviors. And this also involves anger. What does mom or dad do when they're angry? That's what I'll do. Or what about if there's grief in the household? What if I've never seen my parent cry? I don't know what healthy grieving looks like, you see. So emotions drive our decision making, they drive our relationships, and much of it we simply learn haphazardly growing up as children in a household that could be semi-functional, barely functional, or worse, completely dysfunctional. We go to school and we learn almost nothing. Maybe we have a psychology class, we learn a few things, but most people don't know anything. So this is the basis of our emotional health. The things that we all need to feel emotionally secure, at ease, even to thrive in, is we need a few basic things. We need to feel like we belong to our family, our tribe, our community, that we belong. Not just that we fit in with the constant fear of being ejected, but we actually belong, that we have an actual place in our society. And we're accepted and maybe even warmly welcomed. We don't feel like ghosts walking down the street where we walk to the store and the entire trip to the store no one looks at us in the face as if we weren't even there. And we go to buy our produce and then go up to the counter and there's no one there even to check us out. Now we have to deal with the kiosk situation. And we leave, we could go through that whole process, leaving our apartment, returning to our apartment without any interaction at all from anyone. And so then we reach out online to connect with people, which is, I think, a good third choice, but not a good first choice in terms of really feeling like we belong. We need to feel like we belong, but we also need to feel seen. I remember the first time I started hearing this term seen, I didn't really like it. I had an objection to it because I thought it just sounded like a new age pop speak, and it didn't really have any gravitas behind it, any deep meaning. But I was wrong. I just hadn't had anyone explain it to me well, and the way I explain it to people is to be seen means that, let's say I'm sitting in front of my friend and she sees me for who I am, not who I'm pretending to be or who she wants me to be, but actually for who I am. And she likes me and respects me and maybe even has affection for me for who I am. And when we know that the people around us, close to us, see us for who we are and love us and respect us, then we feel safe within that community. Safe as in not in constant danger of losing my position or being shunned or mobbed or ridiculed. They know who I am and they're happy with who I am. That I'm lovable, that's the next thing, to be loved. I'm lovable for who I am, not even for who I want to be. And this is where we get into trouble a lot. A lot of us feel like, well, I know I have a lot of work to do on myself. I feel like this constantly. There are still things I want to do to improve my behaviors toward myself and toward others, especially toward myself. So then, knowing I have this little list of things I want to change, it's difficult, psychologically speaking, to also feel like I'm lovable just the way I am. Because you see, I know what I need to do, I think, to improve myself. So I feel like I'll be even more lovable once I improve myself. So right now, if you don't love me that much, I don't blame you. But if we feel like this our whole life, because our lifetime is a, what do they call it, a work in progress, then we never really feel like we're lovable just the way we are. How could you possibly love me and respect me just the way I am? Because I'm not perfect. There's things I need to do. Here, I'll show you my list. So we get into a little bit of a paradox there of accepting and loving ourselves the way we are, and at the same time wanting to improve. But the first step, of course, is realizing that that paradox is there, and it's normal to have it, and it's great to try to improve, but to not believe that we cannot be loved or liked right now at all until we achieve full expression of that list of achievements. So we need to feel like we belong. We need to feel seen. We need to feel like we're loved. And when we feel these things, we feel safe to express our emotions, to reveal our vulnerabilities without fear of repercussion. Now, when I say reveal our emotions, I also don't want you to think, well, if I'm angry, then I'll just express my anger freely and promiscuously with no thought of how it affects you, just that it makes me feel better. I don't mean that. That would be an opposite extreme, which also would be unhealthy. It means that I can express my anger in a way that does not harm others, as opposed to I can't express my anger at all. You see the difference? In my own upbringing, I grew up in a house where we did not express anger. I learned, hold it in. And so if I became angry, you would just notice I would look a little more intense and speak a little different in my tone, and you would know, but nothing overt. But the opposite of that is now not that I should start yelling at you and bully you and walk up close to you and call you names and then justify it by saying, well, I was angry. This is just being a bully. So we all have to find our way from the two extremes of not expressing or over-expressing to have a healthy, expressive life where it's safe to express our emotions, but in a way that is not harmful to those around us. To me, this is what really becoming an adult is. This is one of the tasks before us as an adult. And it's never ending. But it's good to try our best. And those around us, those who live with us, will certainly appreciate it. Now, anxiety seems to come from not having these things, not feeling like we belong, not feeling safe, not feeling loved, not feeling like we belong. Then we have anxiety, and it's good we live in an age where we have medications that can help us. Medications help some people. But I don't know anyone who wants to live on medication the rest of their life, or their children to have to live on medication for the rest of their life. We seem to continually treat our emotional health as if it's a chemical issue rather than a social issue. For example, we know that if someone feels seen, safe, loved, and so on, they tend not to have anxiety, or much less. And the more isolated you feel, the less seen you feel, the less loved you feel, the lonelier you feel, the more anxiety you have. So clearly, the solution, in I think the majority of cases with you and I, is adjusting our emotional life in the way I've described already. And then we might just find that our anxiety, which is a symptom, starts to dissipate, become alleviated, and at some point is no longer an issue in our life. So in dealing with anxiety, please remember that we need these things to belong, to feel loved, to feel seen, and safe to express our emotions. And this is what we can spend more time on together, you and I, to learn how to do that. No matter how young or old you are, whether you're Generation Z or Generation Azillion, we need to learn and improve how we communicate with each other like a tribe, so that anxiety becomes a thing of the past, sleep issues become a thing of the past, and depression is no longer something that we experience anymore. So many of you have heard me speak before about this, and some of the solutions that I suggest are that we intentionally try to learn these things. We learn what to say, what to do during crises, because the time that the events where we have the most opportunity to help each other and to grow and to change and learn how to speak to each other is actually during crises. When there is no crises and it's a nice sunny day, we don't really need to work on these things as much. It's when we don't feel safe or we are in a deep crisis, that's when all of this really matters. And we just need to learn how to talk to each other. It's not hard. It's easier than learning CPR, which is what we do when someone's heart stops. But I like to say it's time as a society that we learn to do, that we learn what to do when someone's heart breaks, which is entirely different. So this is a different kind of mentality. It's not how do we fix this? It's how do we heal? I like to say that some things can be fixed, like a machine can be fixed. But some things, once broken, cannot be fixed, like the human heart. Once broken, it can't be fixed. But it can be healed. And that is entirely different. So, for the human heart to heal, it takes a village. You've all heard the phrase, it takes a village to raise a child. I think it takes a village to heal the heart, really. It takes our community supporting each other's heart during times of crisis. Then during the good times, they're even better. During the dark times, we're not alone. We belong, and we know we do. And we can move through it. It'll still be difficult, but we'll have some sense of grace and a light at the end of the tunnel. So these are my thoughts to share with you today on emotional health as a society. Learn to talk about your emotions. Learn to listen really well to others. Learn to breathe and breathe together as a group, as a community. We can do a lot to change our emotional health as a society, as a tribe, and as an individual.